We're going to be walking through in detail a presentation, some of which members of the Finance and Human Resources Committee and others who were in attendance last week have already seen some of these, but we're going to be going through the presentation, addressing that in detail and addressing questions. Before we go that route, however, I wanted to just emphasize and highlight a few items. First, you'll note that you've received updated frequently asked questions along with an updated and modified ordinance, the sales tax ordinance. There are some key differences in the ordinance, and we describe that in greater detail in the context of that FAQ document. Most importantly, you'll note that this is no longer for action to be taken by the board in the month of August, in recognition of many of the concerns that were raised at last week's meeting. And since notwithstanding the fact that it would mean foregoing, in the range of $5 to $6 million into sales tax revenue, in the interest of the county board having all of their questions answered in this important discussion, we're going to consider this in conjunction with the 2025 annual budget. So that's the first key difference. The second key difference is you'll note that there's a provision in the modified sales tax ordinance that calls for even greater direct property tax relief. And we'll talk about that in greater detail, but in summary, it is 51% of sales tax collections beginning in year 2026 that would go for direct dollar for dollar offset and reduction in property tax for the taxpayers. The third thing that I wanted to address is in reviewing, I was not in attendance, but in reviewing the recording from last week's meeting, towards the end of the meeting, there was considerable discussion about an advisory referendum. And there was a request, and that passed by a 4-2 vote, requesting that staff, presumably the Office of Corporation Counsel, would prepare an advisory referendum resolution related to the sales tax ordinance that was introduced. There's two important things for you to be mindful of. First, the sales tax ordinance again has changed in key respects since last week. And second, a close review of that meeting made clear that what was being discussed was an advisory referendum. Advisory referenda is something that prior law before last year allowed counties to do as a means of gauging public opinion on various matters. You'll remember in recent years, we've had advisory referenda on marijuana, on dark stores, and a host of other measures. And that wasn't unique to Racine County. This was happening statewide, and partially in recognition of the fact that some of these matters are outside of the authority of counties. State law was enacted last year. It was effective June 22nd last year, that specifically prohibits counties from having advisory referenda as a means of gauging public opinion on specific matters. And then that's no longer allowed. There are exceptions to that, but none of those exceptions specifically apply to the enactment of a sales tax. And so insofar as there had been a request for there to be an advisory referenda prepared for potential consideration by this board in the context of the sales tax ordinance, that's something that is not allowed. Counties do not have that flexibility to first poll the public informally for their thoughts and opinions on this matter before proceeding. As an aside, I have, with the assistance of other attorneys in my office, we've looked through trying to get a sense of, notwithstanding the fact that there's that change in law, have there been counties that went through that advisory referenda process? There's no single receptacle that we could locate that identifies whether any counties have done specifically that. In other words, gone through an advisory referenda. So we had to kind of backtrack it. And so what we did was we looked at the 8 most recent counties to have enacted by ordinance a sales tax. And we were unable to find any indication that any of those 8 did so after first going through an advisory referenda. I spoke with legal counsel for the Wisconsin Counties Association this morning. They confirmed that they too are unaware of any counties that have gone through an advisory referenda. as it relates to enactment of a sales tax. I do know just anecdotally that Brown County, when they were considering renewing their sales tax ordinance, that a motion had been made to put this before the voters for an advisory referendum. And this was before that change in law last year. And that was not successful. And ultimately, the sales tax was continued in Brown County. So I know that's not necessarily what the committee was looking for last week, but I wanted to share that update, and that one, the advisory referenda is not a legal option for the voters to weigh in prior to enactment of an ordinance related to sales tax. And then also, we've been unable to identify a single county that has passed a sales tax ordinance that went through the advisory referenda prior to enactment of that ordinance. So are there any questions on those specific points before we dive into the presentation?
Supervisor Ekman.
Are counties not allowed to do advisory referendums at all?
No, there are a few exceptions, none of which again apply to enactment of a sales tax ordinance. Those specific exceptions are for local shared revenue agreements, cooperative boundary agreements, and certain cable and telecommunication operations.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Supervisor Spencer.
Michael, you mentioned, excuse me, corporate, you mentioned Brown County needing to renew. So my question is this a renewable item that we are going to have to face occasionally, or is it for, what is the time frame if we pass the sales tax?
So the sales tax ordinance that's been drafted and that's proposed for consideration by this board as part of the 2025 executive budget does not include any sunset provision. We have had extensive discussions with our financial advisors at PFM and our bond counsel, and they have been particularly urgent in them insisting, well, not insisting, insisting is not the right word, but expressing caution about the inclusion of any sunset provision, similar to what Brown County has done. And the reason for that, and this is outlined in the frequently asked questions, and I did set a number of copies at the front entrance for members of the public, and I have copies that I'll distribute to the board members prior to our 6:30 p.m. meeting. We addressed that in one of the FAQs. The reason for that is it creates uncertainty. That uncertainty can potentially and reasonably lead to a lack of confidence by the rating agencies. That itself could then in turn to a reduction in credit rating, which itself could then lead to increased property taxes and costs to county and county taxpayers. And so Brown County, they had a provision, I believe it was 10 years. They had a sunset provision. So after they neared that first 10-year period, it was going to be going back for additional consideration. It did pass. And so that continues in full force. But there was some supervisors had expressed interest in putting this to an advisory referendum, and that did not pass. And one other thing that I should have mentioned just in the context of, potentially why a referenda, even if it were allowed, may not be appropriate in this context. And I'm sure many of the supervisors here, when you first joined the county, you received a copy of that black book from the Wisconsin Counties Association. That goes through in detail the role and responsibility of county board supervisors, the primary responsibilities of county supervisors, and it emphasizes that really the primary role of the county board is to make policy and to consider and to approve a budget. And that entails not only how money will be spent, but where those revenues will come from. And so I suspect, and I'm making an assumption here, fair or not, but I suspect that that's been a consideration in why even those counties that enacted a sales tax ordinance and did so prior to that change in law in April of 2023, why they opted not to do so through an advisory referendum. Is we have a representative form of government, and the primary responsibility of a county board is to determine in the course of its consideration of the annual budget how revenues are spent and where those revenues come from.
Any further questions? Okay, before we start, we found some keys in the men's room with a Steeler strap on it if somebody's missing them. Is that you? Huh? Eric's got them, I think, right, Eric? Hopkins? Well, now we know what side you're on. So first item number 1, ordinance by the Finance and Human Resources Committee and Executive Committee creating Chapter 7, Article 9 of the County Sales and Use Tax and Property Tax Relief of Racine County Code of Ordinances. Discussion only, no action. And we're going to call on interim County Executive Roanhouse.
Thank you for this opportunity to unfold a plan to keep our county in its lofty status as the best county of 72 in the state of Wisconsin. And not only the best, it's the best by number 2 is so far behind us. You can't even see them. They're not even on the radar. So I appreciate the opportunity to come before you. As you know, this great team that's behind me and are going to outline this pathway. We did this Wednesday night. I've always been we're all in this together type mode, and you felt that or know that when I was county board chairman, and we even got compliments about we're almost family-like in our focus of how we go forward in delivering government in Racine County. And I guess I never been so conflicted in my life. Wednesday night, this county has proven over and over for the sales tax been in effect. The first 2 counties took advantage of it 38 years ago. This county still has not taken advantage of that funding pathway. So for 38 years, Racine County not only is better than anybody else at delivering government, they're the best stewards of taxpayers' money. They deliver more services with less people and less cost. And we should be rewarded for that stewardship. Instead, I felt Wednesday night that we were questioned like, why are you doing this? And you have no right to jeopardize our county and to put our county at risk. And I thought, where did that come from? After 38 years being the best of the best of the best of the best in delivering government and protecting the steward, being protective of and being stewards of the taxpayer money, all of a sudden, all those principles and those protocols and those methodology don't exist anymore. I was hurt. I still feel like I've been run through a cement mixer. So we're going to do it again. But I want you to know the fact that Racine County is where it's at is because we have talented people at the top and on the ground floor. It doesn't happen. It has people committed and dedicated and proud. All that stuff happens, and I felt like we were getting nothing resonated. We were getting like we were lost souls, and we were bothering people. It's still, I can't get over it. So again, we're going to try it again. Go to the next slide, please. Whoever helping us here, somebody. Okay, the key budget drivers. Here's why we're here: inflation, revenue, and growing community needs. Now, if you read the paper yesterday in Sunday's Racine Journal-Times, under the opinion page, there was a story that the price of the house payment of a medium home in United States of America has doubled in 4 years. From 2020 to today, their house payment has doubled. That just indicates that inflation is nipping at everybody's ankles, including the county. And we have 1,057 employees that are affected by inflation. We have equipment if we have to maintain. We have buildings we have to maintain. Inflation just doesn't pick and choose who it's going to nip at. And we have such a large scale, it just exponentially compounds itself over and over, depending how you want to look at it. So inflation is historic and it affects us too. Revenue, everybody knows if you paid attention at all, that how state government has limited our revenue streams in the last 10 or 20 years. And it's gotten to a point, it's to the tipping point where between the limitations and the inflation, it has us on a fiscal cliff, no doubt about it. And then the growing community needs, our public safety. You'll hear about how the public safety their responsibilities have grown exponentially, how the health has grown exponentially, and our courts and our judiciary. It's just mind-boggling what's happening to our county, and we need help. We can't go any further. We have to find ways to fund these services. So, next slide. I think, Gwen, are you going to help us? Go ahead.
Hello all, Gwen Zimmer, Finance Director, for those who don't know me. I'm going to talk about the next couple of slides to just set the stage financially for what's going on with Racine County. First off, inflation, we know it peaked very high during COVID, and we looked back at what it was going 2016 to here. You're going to see in a next slide where it says it topped over 20%. But this really shows what inflation did to the costs that the county has to pay, as well as the new growth that the county was allowed to take in new revenue to our property tax levy. Essentially saying that we have not caught up with inflation and our revenues are not able to meet the cost of our expenditures just by nature of the state's levy limits. This shows that our operations expenditures have increased 20%, while the national inflation in that same time period is 28%. Going back to the county executive's point, we have been very good stewards of the taxpayers' money in that we are constantly looking for ways to do things differently, to cut positions or to reorganize in ways that will provide cost savings for the county, and this proves it. 20% expenditures compared to 28% inflation. I won't talk overly much about the mill rate. The mill rate is really just a way to allocate out property tax levy to homeowners. The mill rate is calculated by the equalized value and the total amount of the property tax. In this case, 60.8 million, which can be found in the budget book, multiplied by the average home value. And you can see that for the last 11 years, we have at a reduced mill rate, and I expect that continue to go down because the equalized value of our community is going up with how much growth that we've had in our community. So this is a new slide that I wanted to share. This came from the 2024 budget book, which you all have a copy of and is available online on the website and in the county clerk's office by law, but it needs to be in those places. What I did is calculated of the levy, and there are two lines that make up the general property tax levy for the county that gets charged to all county residents: operating levy and debt service. Debt service has no cap. Debt service is whatever your debt payments are. So this body approves debt to be taken out for capital projects the interest and principal for those payments, that is the debt service levy. Can't go higher. You could go lower if you had other revenue to offset it, but basically is what it is. The general levy covers operations and it can only increase by the amount of new growth. This year, that's 1.58%, or about $815,000. And again, to the point that the county executive said, our operating budget is $208 million. 815,000 is not, it's not a small number, but it's also not a savior, essentially. Excuse me. So what I did here is I took the front summary part and I looked through all of the departments and I figured out what the levy is per department. And then we categorized it by the category: criminal justice and courts, governmental, which is all the constitutional offices, human services, which includes veterans, medical examiner, public health, public works and development services, and then administration, which is the support departments to those departments. Miscellaneous is bad debt and other things that don't cleanly fall into an activity. So you can see of criminal justice and courts, it makes up 73% of the levy, almost 38 million. Human services is 13%, governmental, so on and so forth. And again, I just wanted to point out that's available in the budget book, and I'm happy to sit down with anyone who'd like to learn how to interpret this data. I'm hoping that this document is clear enough for all of our constituents to be able to read. On the next slide, I take the same percentages and allocate out what our $17 million deficit cuts would mean. Our deficit is 17 million, and I can, as of February, that's the last time that we did the 2025 budget in high level, 3 versions of it for former County Executive Jonathan Delagrave. In February, reported that to him in April. We are currently in the process of the 25 budget, and I expect to have those numbers, preliminary numbers, at least by the end of this week, so that we can meet with the county executive and the finance chair the week of the 19th, I believe. So if we were to take the $17 million deficit and multiply it by those percentages, you would expect to see 73% of that deficit to come from criminal justice and courts, $12 million. 500,000 from governmental, 2 million from human services, 100 or million from public works, and 400 from administration. Before we move on, are there any questions about these numbers? Okay, I'll kick it over to the county executive.
Okay, all that money is all that money is needed to fund what we call state mandated or essential Racine County government services. As you know, governments exist to deliver services, and I'm old enough to have a civics class and remember that government provides things to people that they can't provide for themselves. Perhaps like a jail or sheriff's staff or record keeping. If you're blessed enough to have a newborn, that has to be recorded. And then maybe decades later, they're blessed enough to get married, they had to get a marriage license. Or support people that are in dire need, the health department, or learning how to tend to their newborns, or planning for our future, administering our elections, or 911. I always like to, I like to quiz people. They take for granted if when they call 911, somebody's going to answer. Just do that with some of your constituents once. It's a given, but I don't know why it's such a given. There's dedicated people working 24/7. They're working when you're eating your turkey. They're going to answer that phone if somebody chokes on their turkey. I mean, I always like to ask that question because so much of government that we deliver at a county level, which means we deliver to 17 municipalities. 17 municipalities are realize the benefits of our great staff. So going from there, Gwen said, of these state mandated and essential services, $62 million of that is unfunded, or means $62 million is from our levy. That's a lot to make sure the all these services are delivered to 17 municipalities. Now, the next three speakers or presenters are leaders of the departments that rightfully so, respectfully so, use the bulk of our operations. So the first one is we're going to talk about public safety, and then we're going to talk about community well-being, and the last of the courts and the judiciary. But please, these people have a story to tell, and I just ask you to pay particular attention because these are services you guys all not only expect, but take for granted. So thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. County Exec. Mr. Chairman, members of the County Board, thank you for allowing me to be here tonight and speak. I did this last week, obviously, as the County Exec said, but I'm willing to come here every week until we get this accomplished. I come to you as a public servant of Racine County for, my goodness, almost 30 years. And half of that has almost been as your sheriff. So when I look back at the growing needs of our community, we talk about violent crime. I look back at some of the things that we offered 30 years ago, and we talk about core services. Those services today, you would laugh at. The things that we have to do today, I never would have dreamt I'd be doing 30 years ago. So when I look at violent crime, I know a lot of times people think violent crime only occurs in the city of Racine. And what are we doing there? The reality is violent crime occurs everywhere in Racine County. It occurs everywhere. In fact, just last week when I spoke about a home invasion that occurred in the village of North Bay. A young teenager in her home and also was assaulted. These things occur everywhere. So when I think about violent crime, it's just not a city of Racine problem. It's a Racine County problem. Criminals do not know jurisdictional boundaries. I found that out many, many years ago. Opioid and fentanyl crisis moving along. And I looked at some stats. I can tell you, I started my career off as a narcotics agent, brand new. I was 22 years old when I got this job offer. 23 years old, I ended up in the Metro Drug Unit, working undercover under Bill McReynolds, who was a sheriff at that time. It was an eye-opener for me. The first night I went out in this community, I bought cocaine and marijuana. I was a young Kenosha kid coming in here to Racine County, no problem buying drugs here. I decided to run for sheriff 17 years later. I talked about how drugs, violence, and guns all go together. Here we are 30 years later. What are we talking about? Violent crime, drugs, overdoses, and guns in our streets. We've been averaging for the last 4 years. In the last 4 years, we lost 200 of our citizens here in Racine County due to accidental overdoses. Now, we can call them accidental overdoses. I disagree. They are reckless homicides. And I'm sure our district attorney is here today will tell you if I could prove who gave that dangerous poison to one of our children, we would arrest them for, underneath the Len Bias law, for reckless homicide. But we feel good as a community calling it accidental overdose. The reality is it's a crime, and we should be treating it as such. And I try. I will tell you that. I try, but I will tell you, investigating that type of crime is incredibly challenging. We're looking at the use of phones and trying to track down dealers and trying to prove who put that dangerous poison in their hand is very, very challenging for us. It requires staff, requires long hours. But in my view, we owe it to the family members to get closure. 9/11 dispatch radio system. The county exec just touched on this. I could not agree more. There is an expectation from our community members, and rightfully so. There's an expectation when we pick up that phone and we call 911 and we hang it up. The expectation is that I'm going to see a first responder pulling up my driveway or on the scene of a crash or wherever it might be. That is the expectation, right, wrong, or indifferent. We have an aging infrastructure of our 911 system. Eventually, it's going to get to the point where it's not going to work. I came from the 90s when I worked on patrol. There were areas of this county where I couldn't get help if I screamed out my squad window. The radio simply didn't work. But that technology has changed and evolved, and we have to continue to change and evolve as those expectations demand it. I couldn't imagine sending a deputy sheriff out into our community and telling, well, hey, certain areas you're not going to be able to get help. So choose wisely, my friend. I don't think that's an adequate statement, and I think none of you would want to know that if you, should you find yourself calling 911, or your friend, your family, or neighbor calls 911, that there's an expectation that help is on the way. And I truly believe, as your sheriff, that we have to have that. It is a fundamental role of government, is the protection of its people. That is the basic need that we need to have. Moving along here with the workforce challenges, and this is a biggie for me, and I'll tell you, the workforce challenges, when I interviewed for this job some 30 years ago, I walked into Gateway. That's where they hold the application process. And there was no less than 300 to 500 people in there raising their hands saying they want to be a deputy sheriff here in Racine County. 300 to 500. I paused for a minute when I walked in that room because I thought, there's no way in heck I'm going to get this job. There's way too much competition in this room. But I stuck around, and thank God I did. I was blessed to work here, and I've been here for the last 30 years. The tables have turned now. Now I'm the sheriff, and I look at the hiring pool. I'm lucky if I have 30 to 50 young men and women who want to raise their hand and say, I'll be a deputy sheriff today. That's pathetic. But of those, I pick the best I can. And I'm proud to say we've attracted great talent from other agencies, from the city of Racine, from outside of our county. They've come to us because they love Racine County. They want to work for Racine County. We treat them with love and respect. We highly train them. We prepare them for the worst case scenarios, and we support them. It's not a ticket to do as you wish, but it's a ticket to support, and they make an honest living right here in Racine County, protecting you and your family. My concern is that when the pickings are slim, meaning I have 30 to 50 candidates to choose from, how do you make up, and you see in the past slide, what is it, $12 million, $15 million deficit? $12.4 million. I'll tell you how we're going to get there. If I'm told at the end of the year that I have to cut $12.4 million from my budget, and by the way, I hate these types of conversations, this or it's that. I don't like saying this, but you're all educated people, you're all elected officials. It's important you make educated decisions. The decision is, if I cut $12.4 million from my budget, we're looking at 53 deputy sheriffs and 36 correctional personnel. Now, I heard one person say, and I'll leave that person nameless, well, Sheriff, you just have to get down to the core of the operation. I'm already there. I'm already at the core of the operation. I gave up 3 deputy sheriffs last year because Jonathan asked me to. He said, listen, Chris, the budget, the check engine light's on. He said it the best. I understood that. I had a lot of spirited conversations with Jonathan, but I agreed with him. I cut 3 deputy sheriff positions, and I felt it. There's 3 less police officers on the streets today, 3 less people investigating crimes against children, drugs that are being peddled in our schools and our streets, 3 less people responding to your car accidents, 3 less people to help you out of a ditch or out of trouble, or marital issues, domestic violence, having a personal mental health crisis, whatever it may be, 3 less professionals on our streets today. I had to live with that. It is what it is. But I will tell you this, 53 less on these streets, talk about cutting core. I don't know what I'm going to do when you call 911, if that even works. It'll just be a catastrophe. The county jail, I struggle to get individuals into that jail. But I want to thank this board for approving a nice pay raise for them a couple of years ago that helped level the ship, and I was able to attract and keep quality candidates in our jail. We went from almost at full staff to the jail, then I'm down another 15. Then I'm back to almost full staff, and I'm back down to 15. So I would almost suggest to this board, we should almost overhire, because we're never going to be at that golden number, because people end up leaving. They become police officers, or they just say this job isn't for me. There's a difference when we got hired here 30 years ago. We looked at it as a career. The younger generation, and no offense to any of my staff that are younger, but they look at this as something they want to try out for a bit. But the minute they don't feel that support, the minute they hear that there's 53 people that might be losing their jobs, I can tell you that 53 is going to turn into 83 very quickly. If you can imagine, if you're a young person in my agency, maybe you just got married, bought a new home, maybe you got a child on the way. You have all these life purchases because why? You got the career of a lifetime. And now you're told that your job might be on the line. I can tell you 30 years ago, if I got hired here and this conversation was happening between this board, I would run for the hills. I'm going to go find security. Who's going to pay my bills? Who's going to support my family? I will go to another agency that I know is stable. I know that one is going to support me. I know one that supports law enforcement. With that said, just going to wrap this up very quickly in conclusion. So I just want to say that we look at cutting the fat. I hear that term thrown around a lot in our community. And I'm part of a conservative party, Republicans. I always believe in doing more with less. I love that phrase, right? Why does it take 5 people to do something maybe one person can do? We've done that our whole career. I was part of that in the 90s with here. The county went with this. I worked under 5 county executives. You know, doing more with less, loved it, cut the fat. Well, we've cut the fat, folks. We have. Not just at the sheriff's office, Human Services Department, who I work very closely with. I couldn't do my job without those professionals. With healthcare, mental health issues in our jail division, people we meet on the street, the individuals, we need those professionals. We're always having these conversations. How can we do more with less? I know it doesn't look like that when you see it on black and white, but I'm telling you from 30 years of boots on the ground and these conversations, we run a very, very lean operation here. And when you look at these kinds of dollars that we're talking about today, there's no way you're going to get there by, going paperless or cutting back on pens and paper and all the rest. You're going to get there by cutting staff. That's the only way to do this. And when you cut staff, we cut public safety. We cut public safety, we're going to be like Chicago, Illinois, Portland, Oregon, Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I got to tell you, I refuse to be like one of those cities, one of those counties. I just can't handle that. We deserve better. Our constituents deserve better. They deserve to call 911 and have men and women show up at their house and address their issues. That's all I have. And with that said, I'm going to turn it over to, there she is. Oh. I wonder where you're hiding.
Yeah.
Thanks, Hope.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff Schmeling. Hope Otto, Human Services Director for the county, for those of you who do not know me. I'm going to be probably reiterating some of the comments that have already been stated, but I think they're worth repeating from the vantage point of the Human Services Department and the Executive Office. One of the greatest strengths that Racine County has and always has been holding is creativity, innovation, and excellence in serving the community with an unwavering respect to the residents. And we recognize that those are the individuals who pay for the services that we render. And I've been in this role for nearly 15 years, and I take both personal and professional pride to be able to lead a $60 million operation with extreme fiscal conservancy. And since 2020, Human Services, the District Attorney's Office, and the Sheriff's Office have been working together in such an integrated way in partnership, interdependent, both operationally and financially, and we've been very transparent and leading with trust at the center of our work. The key to this is working together to provide the right solutions to the right people and ensuring that the people that are committing the most violent crimes are given justice, but we're giving alternatives to those who do not. And our diversion statistics are proof that integrating our disciplines work. Diversion is nothing new, but we can lose traction of it once it's working. I find that in a lot of our efforts, and violent crime is one of them, that once we start seeing successes in it, we forget. And then we start pulling back some of the resources that made it effective in the first place. So if we do that and we cut the backbone of our prevention and intervention services, that makes our non-institutional placements possible or not being incarcerated, then we see the expensive out-of-home placement cost rises. This has happened over time. Winnebago, Lincoln Hills, out-of-state residential facilities, and all of those, as I've shared with you, are well over $1,000 a day. And as the sheriff had mentioned, we also need to have an option for those who are experiencing a mental health crisis and diverting them from the jail and having a robust clinic and services with clinicians to make sure we're decriminalizing mental health and treating people with the dignity and respect that they deserve. And just to talk a little bit about the historical reference to diversion, under County Executive McReynolds, the county created one of the first initial diversion initiatives, which was the ACE program that many of you are probably aware of. It cost us nearly $1 million to implement, but it has saved us millions of dollars over the years because we're diverting youth from corrections. Again, an expensive institutional placement. At that time, we were experiencing a 233% increase in human services tax levy. And that investment that we made to the Human Services Department long before I was there changed the trajectory of youth justice moving forward. And now you fast forward to 2017, and we experienced an all-time high in out-of-home placements in our child welfare area. And this board, not the exact board, but several members of you, helped to invest in our child welfare division. We had nearly 350 kids in out-of-home care. And under the leadership of former County Executive Delgrave, we enhanced our staff and we enhanced programming by almost $1 million. And we have seen a decrease year after year from that investment. And now we have the lowest number of kids in out-of-home care per capita in the state of Wisconsin. And we're saving between $1 and $3 million a year comparatively. In mental health, as the sheriff had mentioned, our team had created a robust partnership to avoid unnecessary incarcerations of people with mental illness through our CREW initiative. The partnership with the district attorney, with workforce, mental health, youth justice diversion, it's all at an all-time high in the history of the county, and that helps us to serve people at reduced costs. And speaking of workforce, because that is an area where it is a non-mandated service, we've been relentlessly pursuing grants to support our workforce efforts since we've seen a significant decline in state and federal aid to support our work. Our amazing Travis Richardson wrote a nearly, I believe it was an $800,000 or $900,000 grant to support the district attorney, our workforce development area, and the sheriff's office. At this point, our workforce development area is about 60% off the levy. We have about 40% that we have left that we are looking to find additional resources for. And we just wrote a grant for Wisconsin Works, or W2, that would likely take the entire workforce development team off of the levy. And really, workforce development has been such an integral part of the Human Services Department in the county for 3 decades. And I would, with options that need to be on the table, that would be one of the things I would suggest. But I do think it is a valued service and often a missing service that Human Services has around the state, and part of the continuum of human services to promote economic stability and self-sufficiency. And especially if we are able to secure the funding to do so, it would really be a shame. And I say all these things, and I think it's really important to reiterate, this is not to induce fear or try to ensue any sort of emotions other than just the facts of where we are. We need to be prepared and not scared. We've built an intricate network of support that has reduced dependency on deep-end services. We have streamlined, consolidated, and cut. And I have cut in the Human Services Department 11 positions since 2014 in areas where revenue no longer supported them. We've only added in areas that either the community demanded or it strategically made sense to reduce costs in other areas. And I support that with my county board, my Health and Human Services board, and I bring them along through this process, hopefully in the most transparent and honest way possible. This year, like every year at budget time, we're going to continue to work with you, our county board, to fine tune the budget moving forward and finding areas of efficiencies. And that is my commitment to you. But we do have a really solid system in place. And I know I speak very effusively and I'm generous with compliments, but the next speaker truly is, as I said at the last meeting, the most creative and innovative and hardest working district attorney in the state. And she's going to talk about things from the court perspective. And I'll turn it over to her.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tricia Hansen, the district attorney. I know all of your names, so I'm assuming that all of you know mine. We've crossed paths at some point in time. This is my 29th year in the Racine DA's office. I've been the DA for 8, so this is my 8th budget. I don't want to just bore you with rhetorical stories about what things look like in Racine County today versus what they did in 1995 when I was much younger and my hair was darker. But I will tell you that the nature of the work that we do now has completely turned 360. When I started as an assistant district attorney, I had a misdemeanor caseload and I had about 250 cases. Today, that's a young person coming out of law school who carries 500 cases. Felony attorneys had about 150. We're now at 250. Our numbers in the felony area are going up much more dramatically than in the misdemeanor area. And I attribute a lot of that to out of the box thinking in terms of how we use our resources. The legislature passed the constitutional amendment for Marcy's Law, but Marcy's Law didn't come with funding to make sure that we were able to provide every victim of a crime with the appropriate level of services. I am proud to say that we've done that despite the lack of funding. I am so proud of the Victim Witness Office and all the work that they do to help people, not only those who have been victims of crimes that we've charged, but during the Violent Crime Reduction Initiative, we've reached out even further to people whose crimes are perhaps cold cases. They've lost a loved one and we can't find the perpetrator, but we are there early and on scene to make sure that those folks understand the process and how we can be there to help them. You know, when I started this job, and what's still true today, almost 30 years later, is that whatever cases come in the door, we are responsible for. And my position is the buck stops with me. Everything that one of my 19 attorneys does is a reflection on me and what my policies are. And I have, believe me, thought to myself, other counties are just not taking certain types of cases. They just don't prosecute retail theft in Milwaukee County. But I think about Vice Chairman Meyer and what does retail theft do to his business if I don't do something about it? What does criminal damage to property do for someone whose car is the most important thing they own because it gets them to work to be able to provide for their families? And what do I tell parents who have lost their children to opioid deaths? As the sheriff told you, they're on the rise. I don't want anyone to leave here today thinking I spend my time and energy worrying about how we're going to get everybody who's got a marijuana blunt in their car. Marijuana was the first diversion that I initiated. Oh, how long ago did we start TASK? At least 7 or 8 years ago, because I wanted people to have an education about why marijuana is not good for them, because I could talk about that all day, and I'm not gonna. I wanted to divert them away from the criminal court because we were pressed for resources at that time. So what have I done as a result? Out of the box thinking in terms of diversion. We've diverted thousands of cases away from the criminal justice system with nonviolent offenders who probably just need a hand up to get on track. I've always said in 30 years, I can count on both of my hands the people I thought really should never walk the streets again. Most of what we see are people who have made bad choices because they're under the influence. We have people who are desperate, and we have people who are not thinking in the right frame of mind when they commit the crime that they do. So what can we do to get those people back on their feet? And diversion has been the answer for us. And that's why the misdemeanor numbers are holding at around that 500 rate. Just this last year, we started through the grant that Hope referred to, diverting people who have a revoked driver's license away from the court system. And what do we do with them instead? We help them get a driver's license. We make them take their AODA safety class. We make them get their insurance. We make them get back on the road in a safe way rather than running the risk, worrying about a traffic stop, fleeing from the police, and endangering the safety of everyone around them. And I'm proud to say that program is absolutely thriving. I don't have the numbers as of today, but the last time I asked, which was at the beginning of the summer, there were over 400 people who'd been through that program rather than go to court. So the average number of cases are not going to change, but I think the thing that's also really important to stress that I've seen change in the 30 years is the fact that we don't have kids stuff anymore. We aren't talking about kids stealing candy. We aren't talking about husband and wives getting into fights. We're talking about guns being displayed to citizens who are innocent and outside the scope of why that's happening. The homicide that happened on Bird Avenue the other night was a stranger to the shooter. Why should someone sitting on their porch be at risk? And that's what happened. So the change in the type of crime, you know, when we were chasing down kids on the corner with some rocks of crack cocaine in their pocket back in the 90s, now we're chasing kids who have hundreds of pills in their pocket that look like ecstasy or the party drug, but they're really fentanyl. And they don't know they're getting fentanyl. And that's what really scares me. I don't know how to stop the tide of fentanyl at this point. We're doing our best to crack down on those dealers, and we're trying to provide help and services to the users. But the change in the tide of this kind of crime and the violent crime, people are not settling their differences with words anymore. Now there's guns involved and weapons, and that's what we're unable to find a resolution for. Court security spending is another unfunded mandate from the state. Currently, Racine County and their operational costs on the levy for property taxes spends about $2 million annually on court security. Most of our courtrooms have only one deputy, if one at all. The felony courtrooms have to have two so that they can move people who are more dangerous back and forth to the courtrooms. You can see there is now a metal detector inside the building, which we are certainly grateful for. But the metal detector is only as good as the ability to find people to work there. Our reserve deputy numbers are always at a challenging level. Right now, in talking with Amy Vanderhoff, our clerk of courts, we are at bare minimum staff for the courts. Each judge has a clerk. Someone's liberty is at stake if the clerk doesn't get their paperwork done every day. And when they have calendars 60, 80, 100 cases in a misdemeanor traffic court, it's difficult for them to get all that work done and get people released out of the jail. Our technology is woefully behind in our courthouse. We have TVs that are probably, well, they're definitely not Fire Stick ready. Let's put it that way. We plug our computers into them and we pray that the Wi-Fi is working the way that it needs to, so that we can play the plethora of videos. When I started this job, a police report on a case would have been a couple of pages long. Now there's 3 officers, an hour worth of body cam from each, and squad videos. And we have to review those things. And so being able to use technology, we aren't even, all the courtrooms are just recently wired so we can plug a computer in to use the internet. Those challenges are going to be coming. The facilities themselves. I will tell you that every time it rains, my windows leak. And there's not much we can do about them. I have a beautiful view on the 9th floor, but my window to the north is so clouded with time and work, abuse on the windows, that it's difficult to see out it. So these things are not going away, these challenges, but they're certainly on the back burner because our folks within the courts and within human services and the sheriff's office, the 3 biggest departments that combine together, none of us are coming to you asking for windows. We're not coming to you asking for raises. The 2024 budget is the same as 2025. It's just there's not the resources there to cover it. We have workforce challenges. I'm really lucky, I think, and people will tell you amongst the county, Sarah would tell you for sure. I have very little changeover in my county employees, but it's been very difficult for me to bring attorneys who want to come and work in Racine. And I, knock on wood, today was the first day that I'm up to full staff in the entire 8 years that I've been here. Does that affect your budget? It does not. But I tell you that story only so that you understand that the shortage of attorneys is absolutely draining the county's levy dollars. Unlike my office, and I told this story the other night, and I will tell it again, the criminal justice system is a little like a tea kettle. And when the tea kettle begins to boil over, it makes a noise. It warns you that there's a problem. So that tea kettle rings first at the state public defender's office. Now, the state is charged with providing lawyers for folks who can't afford to hire their own. But they all get to limit the number of cases that they take each year, those staff attorneys. So I don't know the numbers specifically, but let's say you are required to take 20 cases a year. And if you hit that maximum in March, you're done until the state budget turns over on July 1st. I don't have that luxury. I can't say we've hit a maximum number of cases, we're not going to take any more. The courts can't say you filed as many cases as we can this year. We have to stop taking cases. So that has posed a challenge for the counties that I think wasn't contemplated. in that the state public defender's office, when they can't find an attorney for someone and people are waiting a really long time, 30, 60, up to 120 days to get a lawyer. They're sitting sometimes in our jail, and I'll get to that in just a minute. But the workforce challenge is that the courts will say, okay, well, I'm going to look for a lawyer for you then that doesn't work at the public defender's office, but we can't find any. At $100 an hour, it's just not appealing to young lawyers or even lawyers who have been around for some time. Last year, the county spent almost $1 million on attorneys' fees for indigent defendants, when the state has the state public defender's office. So those cost burdens are being pushed to the levy, whether we like that or not. And the last thing is that every time the criminal justice system gets behind, every time we can't get those cases through the system faster, it increases costs all the way around. Right now, the average stay went from 67 to 117 days for men on pretrial felony cases. So that means that a man who's been charged with a felony is going to spend almost double the time waiting for his case to be processed. It also means that once someone's been there 117 days, there's a pressure on the courts to release them. And then we find ourselves in those situations like Waukesha, where bonds aren't set high enough and dangerous criminals get released back into the community. If it weren't for Hope and her team at RCAP, if that kind of funding gets cut for pretrial screening services, we will not be able to monitor folks who get released from jail. That's a burden that the county bears for GPS, for scram units on drunk drivers, for drug testing for people who are addicted to fentanyl. If we have to cut those resources, it may mean that we don't monitor people who get released from jail. And I will have a difficult time explaining that to victims of stalking, victims of domestic abuse, victims of burglars who feel as though their home has been invaded and now we don't know where the suspect is. So I don't mean to be here and cry that, it's not my budget that's being impacted here. All I have is really people. My budget doesn't include, there's no cars, there's no extra. My budget is paper, some copiers. I have to pay part of the phone bill for the county. There's nothing in this budget for me. There's nothing in a sales tax that I think would help my department before these others. And so I just urge you to listen with an open mind. I, unlike you, have a partisan race every 4 years. I am a Republican. When you say to me, increase in taxes, it gives me the chills. I'm taking abuse at home from my husband. But when I explained some of these numbers to him, he understood. And I would urge you all to ask the hard questions. When I have had to do some investigations into officer-involved shootings, things got very uncomfortable for me. I had 200 people standing outside the courthouse calling for my head. Thankfully, the sheriff and his team were amazing. And I went outside and spoke to them to let them know, here's the process. Please be patient with me. You are now facing the crowd of 200, maybe the crowd of 10,000 in your district. And we are asking you to do something that's going to be challenging. People aren't going to like it. It's not always going to be popular. But I'm asking you to do the right thing because it's right for Racine County.
Powerful, powerful, powerful. I'm just conflicted again how those messages from those three leaders, how their message did not resonate Wednesday night. I might use the word befuddled. Let me use it again. After listening to all that, how that failed to resonate is beyond me. Okay, the next slide. This is my favorite slide because they say a picture's worth of 10,000 words. The more you look at it, the more you can discern. And lowest mill rate, least tax levy, lowest staffing levels. and no county sales tax. And yet I feel that sometimes we're put on trial for being the best. I just think it's so grossly unfair. Look at Racine and look at our levy compared to Winnebago is like us. The Winnebago County does not have a sales tax. But look at Kenosha, Outagamie, and Rock, and look at their levies and look at their populations. I mean, 12 million, 13 million, 15 million. And a number of employees we have. We're less than any of them. Again, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and if the narrative doesn't resonate, hopefully the demonstrative picture will. So that's where I'm there with that. Again, only 3 counties do not have a sales tax. And look at that. Racine, Waukesha, and Winnebago. I don't think I'm telling a tale out of school. In the Business Journal, either this week, the Milwaukee Business Journal, either this week or last week, Waukesha has started the process of implementing a sales tax. It may be a year down the road, but the article clearly indicates that all the parts have been put in place to move forward with a sales tax. So the next one, missed opportunity. I said it's been in place for the sales tax, been in place for 38 years. So if we have 69 counties, we'll make it 70, half of them 35. 35 counties have, we'll use for the last 20 years, have had a leg up on us just because they took advantage of a tool in their toolbox. And now that toolbox or that opportunity presents ourselves, and we'd be remiss if we didn't totally embrace it and move forward with it. Look at Kenosha, $20 million. And I don't know when I forgot to look. Let's say for 5 years, they had $100 million more than us. And you heard Trish talk about all 3 people talked about their operations. Nobody talked about facilities and windows leak. I think the sheriff shared with me, there's a spot in the county jail that every time it rains, they have to get buckets out. That's true, correct? In his office. So all the narratives you heard didn't even talk about facilities, and Mother Nature has a way of taking back everything. So they're not gonna last forever. So we really have a missed opportunity. We have missed the opportunity, and I pray to the Lord that we don't do it again. What's the next one? Look at this. Racine County ranks dead last in highway as well as health and human services spending per capita. And yet I have to read gibberish on Facebook and social media how we're so not cognizant of being stewards of the taxpayer money. Racine County ranks dead last in highway as well as health and human services per capita. Oh my Lord. Okay, move on. The overview, what is a sales tax? Keep going, please.
I can jump in here.
Would you please, Michael?
Thank you. So I'm going to try and keep this portion of it relatively brief, as it is among the drier parts of this. But all counties in Wisconsin have the ability to enact what is a 0.5% sales tax. What can the sales tax be used on? State law requires that county sales tax can be used toward reduction of property taxes. There had been some confusion on that point until recent years, and there was a case that was litigated through the lower courts and made its way to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And the Wisconsin Supreme Court in this case involved Brown County and its recent enactment of a county sales tax indicated that a dollar for dollar offset toward property tax reduction is neither required by state law nor is it workable under levy limit statutes. In simple terms, what that means is that the same amount of countywide property tax reduction can occur whether a county chooses to budget revenues as a reduction in the overall property tax levy or as an offset against a portion of the costs of specific items which can be funded through a property tax. So there's some flexibility, and you'll see this if you dig into the county budgets of those 69 counties across the state that have enacted a county sales tax. You won't often see direct property tax reduction. However, what's before you, the modified ordinance that's been provided with all board supervisors, features a provision that would require that 51% of all tax revenues that are collected beginning in year 2026, the first full year where we would be collecting revenues, that would go towards a dollar for dollar offset to the property tax levy. You can click ahead to the next couple of slides, John. There's been some confusion just that we've heard in the last few days about what is taxable and what is not, and what are some impacts to the community that may be seen. One of the specific things that we've heard is that this may disproportionately impact low-income residents within Racine County. What you see here is this is a list of purchases that would be taxable for a county sales tax. It's also important to note that the proposed county sales tax would specifically exclude certain purchases of essential items, goods, and that includes prescription drugs, medical equipment, insurance, food and food ingredients, manufactured homes, motor vehicle and alternative fuel, electricity and natural gas in certain months, November to April when usage is the highest, and also the water utilities. And so this is spelled out in greater details in the FAQ documents. We needn't spend a great deal of time tonight, but familiarize yourself with those. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and I understand that when this was initially being presented in an even more compressed time frame, it put you all at a really difficult spot in trying to drink from a water hose and trying to get the information, but also equip your constituents with that information. And so it's partially with that in mind that we're slowing down this process to allow for that information to come out, so that as you hear this misinformation, you're not guided by it. You're not putting it in the hands of voters to vote on their own. But rather that you can become equipped to understand the issues, to understand the drivers in the budget, and in this instance, what is exempt from the sales tax. And again, it bears mentioning that while those impacts would not be disproportionately impacting those lower income families and residents, our ability to provide services for those groups of individuals would absolutely be compromised, often leading to catastrophic results in the absence of the county sales tax. Go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Travis Richardson. For those that don't know me, I'm the data director for Racine County. On behalf of our data team, I'm really just here to help inform and empower you all to understand the stats and figures around a county sales tax. So in a nutshell, how does it affect our bottom line with our budget? And then in turn, how does it affect our residents? You will notice that a lot of this information isn't publicly accessible, or maybe to put it more directly, doesn't exist simply because we don't have a county sales tax. But you'll see through these slides that we can get very creative and make very educated, informed guesses around what that overall impact would be. So the slide you're looking at now, so the Wisconsin Department of Revenue does not release state sales tax revenue collected. So that is the 5% sales tax that all of us already pay towards the state on each and every purchase, nor taxable sales made by consumers in our county. But we do have access to Bureau of Labor Statistics data, population data, where we can weight those two metrics in comparison to other counties and look at their county sales tax revenue. And our data set aligned exactly with the county sales tax revenue collected from these other counties. So based on where we fall relative to them, we can make, again, a very educated guess around what our sales tax revenue would be for Racine County. So what you're looking at is very comparable counties. Again, these weren't cherry picked. These are counties that we are similar to relative to population and taxable spending. For 2023, the foregone county sales tax revenue we are showing is 22 million. That is a very, very conservative estimate. If you look at the taxable sales for 2023, that number could potentially be higher. But again, not necessarily wanting to overpromise and underdeliver. This is a very safe guess for what our sales tax revenue could look like. So how does this impact our county residents? So we'll show a few examples of what the impact would look like day to day with just regular discretionary spending to what is the annual impact on your average county resident, and then what is the overall tax burden, both property and sales tax paid by an average household in Racine County. So what you're looking at, those different denominations represents if you are charged at a point of sale, right, 0.05% for your purchase, how much are you paying for a given day-to-day purchase? So again, just sharing this to get a sense of what that day-to-day impact would look like. Not commenting on how this would feel to different people, right? So you may have some residents that don't know they're paying an extra dime for a restaurant meal when they go to Kenosha, Walworth, or Milwaukee counties. There's some people that might be very budget conscious, right? But this hopefully can give you a good frame of reference for what that county sales tax impact is. Have a very love-hate relationship with this slide. So the Wisconsin Department of Revenue releases data for all the counties that have a county sales tax, what the average cost is per resident in their counties. But how they calculate that is they just take the total county sales tax revenue and they divide it by their total population. So as you can imagine, people in Brown County, I'm guessing, aren't spending more than people in Rock County. They're not overspenders. They happen to have the Packers, they have out-of-county spending and visitors, and as a result, they have higher county sales tax revenue. So when you divide it by their population, it's going to look like they're spending more. We head to back into the gold bar for Racine County because again, we don't have a county sales tax and therefore don't have that number. But using the same kind of metric, that's roughly where we would be. But again, I think it's important to really emphasize that they are literally just taking the county sales tax revenue and dividing it by their population. So as you'll see from these other slides, there's other sources for county sales tax revenue. So the Southern Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, or Sewer PAC, they have a big comprehensive plan 2050 that has very extensive data sets on travel commutes inside and outside of the county every week. These are the average weekday trips into our county. So as you can imagine, these are 70,000 individuals who buy gas, go out for lunch, maybe do their shopping before they go home. I'm just showing you the average weekday trips from the surrounding counties. This doesn't count out-of-state boaters. It doesn't count tourism. It doesn't count people here on business trips, right, on this particular slide. So really, this is just trying again to underscore just the significant volume of people that would contribute to a county sales tax. And vice versa, we could have included this slide, but very comparable number of people going to other counties on a day-to-day basis where there currently is a county sales tax. So on average, we would receive roughly 20 to 25% of our sales tax revenue from visitors outside of Racine County. So the truth of this slide is we will never know the county of residence of every person at their point of purchase or who's making a purchase. We'll never know this number in reality. But we have a lot of good reasons to think this number is the case. So this is already going on 3 years with former County Executive Delagrave. We were having conversations with statewide county executives who felt confident that their county sales tax revenue was a quarter of it was roughly generated from out of county spending. I don't want to disclose this study because I don't know if it's public, but one of the counties that fairly recently went for a county sales tax did a very comprehensive analysis of where their out of county spending came from. They used sources across the Wisconsin Departments of Tourism, Revenue Administration. They used Bureau of Labor statistic data. It was really comprehensive. They worked with their chambers and they came up with 25%. So again, if you look at the text here, post-COVID, right, still in the wake of COVID, direct tourism. So this is specifically tourism spending. If you take that 272 million and you divide it by our guess at what taxable sales were in Racine County for 2022, That would be 6% alone of total spending in the county, just directly on tourism. So I think it's a very fair assumption to kind of work into, again, that 20 to 25%. And then this is a lot of data, so just to break down this slide, the column on the far left there are comparable counties, again, based on either population size or consumer spending. If you look at the next column to the right, average county property taxes, that would be the property tax burden for the average household if that were to exist across these different counties. So if the average assessed property value in Racine County is $264,500, how much would that person taking their exact same home at that exact same assessed value pay if they were a resident of Kenosha instead of Racine County? As you can see, lowest property taxes across comparable counties. Based on that Wisconsin Department of Revenue data, we would be paying the lowest per capita and county sales tax. So just to get to the punchline here, even with a county sales tax, our residents would be paying about $100 less overall for their tax burden compared to the next closest county. And what is that, roughly $400 less than some of the higher counties. I'll pass it back to County Executive Roundhouse. Thank you.
We're to the end almost. Let's play semantics. Instead of sales tax, we'll call it an investment. And the reason it's an investment, Travis, move to the next slide. The reason it's an investment going forward to forever and ever and ever, 51% of the money garnered through a sales tax every year will go directly to property tax relief. Property tax relief means investment on your property, on your dwellings, on your businesses. So it's 51% of that for ever and ever, starting out at about $10 million, $11 million a year will go directly to help subsidize the value of your home or your business. The remaining 49% will help Racine County keep delivering the services that it does so remarkably well over and over, and not only deliver services which in effect stabilize property and increases the capital. So it's not a sales tax, it's an investment. So Travis, please. Now, yes or no on a county sales tax? I don't know how to do this. We'll start with no sales tax, and I'll just do the increases property taxes, and you can read the rest, okay? Next, essential services are going to have to be cut, as some of our presenters alluded to. Increased debt. Anytime you increase debt, you reduce your stability. Just ask any banker. He'll tell you that over and over and over. That gets them all nervous. Okay, why we should have this investment sales tax? Because it's going to reduce our property taxes. Again, it's going to protect the essential services that the state of Wisconsin mandates that we deliver at a quality level to all 17 municipalities. Doesn't matter if you live in Racine, Burlington, Norway, or Mount Pleasant, Sturtevant. What the county delivers is delivered with an equal eye to all. And then it enhances our financial stability. Real simply, Racine County, because it's been so good stewards of the taxpayer money, we also enjoy a real high tax rating, or a bond rating, I'm sorry. So I'm going to conclude here. Remember, I can't get over that Racine County is the best of the best of the best. And my confidence was shaken a little bit Wednesday night because what was supposed to move forward didn't move forward. But I go to bed at night just shaking in my boots that how reasonable, intelligent leaders could come to would want to put Racine County's delivery of top-notch services to 200,000 people, want to put that in jeopardy. And secondly, it may even shutter our county. You listen to the numbers that the sheriff alluded to. I don't know how you can deliver the services you guys expect with what he has to do. It just makes me shiver to think that this is even a question, that we don't want to use this tool that 69 other counties, our peers, have been using, and over half of them have been using it for 20 years. And we're even reluctant and thinking that maybe it's not something for us, and we're going to jeopardize all the goodness that's delivered every day, and kind of lose our status and kind of have to jeopardize how we try to deliver services. I beg of you that this is an investment. It's called the sales tax, but 69 other, it's just a way of doing business now. And we do it, meaning Racine County does it better than anybody else without a tax. Just think how good we're going to do with a tax or with additional revenue. It's basically been working with two arms behind our back, and now we get a chance to have two arms swinging like everybody else. So thanks for your time.
Mr. Chairman, just one last thing. You'll notice on the frequently asked questions document that you all should have a copy of, and feel free to share this. Again, we have copies of that at the entrance to this room, but you'll notice in the final page that it has a tentative schedule for upcoming public meetings. You'll note that there are 6 public hearings in that list prior to considered passage of the 2025 budget. You'll notice 12 meetings. You'll notice that there are 6 listening sessions. We are in the final steps of scheduling and determining location for those. What we're trying to pick locations throughout the county so members of the public would have opportunity to come, and if it's not convenient for them to come to county board meetings and the other public hearings, express their opinions on this and ask questions and have their questions answered. This is a public record. You can make it available to anybody. I'm sure we can make a copy of the presentation itself. I noticed some people taking pictures of this. We can make that available to the board supervisors. You in turn can make that available to your constituents. But I understand we're running up against 6:30 here, but this is again just one of many meetings that we'll be having. With the board chair's discretion, we can certainly field questions.
Is there any questions from the supervisors? Any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Miller.
so what is your desire? The agenda says discussion. I'm not, I don't feel it's appropriate to get into in-depth on this. It was a good presentation, but do you want any discussion?
If you've got some questions about the slides,
Well, I do have a comment.
why don't you make a comment then?
Okay,
Supervisor
thank you,
Miller?
Mr. Chairman. And I want to thank you, Chairman Kramer, very much for drastically changing the schedule. I could tell last week that you were not really comfortable with the speed at which county board was being asked to move on this. And I think a slower pace is so much more important because the county board has the important responsibility of deliberating on and voting on an annual budget. And this is where the detailed discussion should occur. And I think now with your leadership and by changing this timetable, you have brought the county board back in as an equal partner. And I thank you for that. I think that will help to bring the public involved. And I never detected in any of the comments last week, and I certainly do not have the feeling that our staff is anything but the best. For years and years and years, I have praised the innovation, the collaboration, the creativity that has resulted in us doing what we do at a very reasonable cost. So the next phase is, as with any budget deliberation, it's a matter of revenue and expenditures. And I know this board will follow its responsibilities to look at every expenditure. And, you know, sometimes we do so many good things, but sometimes we have to say, can we continue to do so many good things? And that may mean some cuts. It may mean a sales tax right now. I hope we continue to do what has been our tradition, and that is to work with the staff to find the best mix of revenue and expenditures.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Any other questions, comments? Otherwise, we can adjourn. We have, we are adjourned. All right. Are we streaming? All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. If there, I'm going to call the meeting to order and the opening prayer. I'm going to call on Supervisor Trottier.
Please rise. For many of you that have been on the county board, I have said this prayer before. I just absolutely love it. This is taken from one of the leaders of the 20th century by the name of Mahatma Gandhi. A prayer for all who serve. As we serve others, we are working on ourselves. Every act, every word, every gesture of genuine compassion naturally nourishes our own hearts as well. It is not a question of who is healed first. When we attend to ourselves with compassion and mercy, more healing is made available to others. And when we serve others with an open and generous heart, great healing comes to us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the public comment period would be pursuant to section 2-72 of the Racine County Code of Ordinances. Each speaker will be allotted 3 minutes. So if you need to speak and you haven't send up a copy like this, it's on the back table. Fill them out and send them up, and we'll. First is John Gorton. Come up, John. State your name and address, and
John Gorton, 1913 Newman Road, Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin. First of all, I'd like to thank all you supervisors for all you do for us residents of Racine County. I know it's a thankless job, whichever way you go on your roles. So thank you. And I would be amiss if I didn't thank all the public service people here for all you do for us to make our life enjoyable. I think it's amazing that our memories are so short. It just seems like yesterday that we couldn't wait to get rid of the stadium tax. And now we're proposing another tax that's approximately 5 times what that was, has no sunset clause on it. And it's also interesting that, we all know about inflation. Everybody talked about it tonight and how it's impacted them and how it's impacted your yearly budgets. But I think we as residents face that every day, not once a year. And all of us are having to make hard choices. I also read not long ago that the average, 2/3 of the average Americans don't have $500 in emergency funds. That's downright scary. And so now we want to impose another tax. I just don't think it's the right time. I think people are struggling. I heard somebody make, with all due respect, on sales tax is going to be out-of-state people. I think if you take the hotel tax away, you would find that we as residents pay 95% of all taxes, whether it's sales tax or regular taxes. And the average person only is lucky if he has a wage. If he's retired, he might have a pension or Social Security. I realize that you are challenged with funds, but you have sources of fees, taxes, shared revenue with the state. And so I would just say that I don't think this is the time to do it. I know everybody's challenged and you people are challenged. And I've heard time and time again that we're going to run out of money. And the previous chairman, Mr. Delgrave, I think did a good job And he brought it, I think, to the board at year end when it's appropriate to discuss revenues and expenditures. And now you would just be getting an automatic inflow of money with no discussion. And I know we all like extra money, but I think it makes us have easier choices how we're going to expend our money. So with that, I just like to thank you and appreciate the time given. And I'm realized that I'm lucky to be a resident of Racine County, and I hope we remain frugal and wise. And I think you've done a great job. So thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Dale Stillman.
My name is Dale Stillman, 6601 Blue River Way, Racine, Caledonia, Wisconsin. I'm also a trustee for the Village of Caledonia. I am a firm believer. I think that this is the greatest idea in a long time. I remember about 4 or 5 years ago, we discussed it, the 0.5% sales tax and how we were going to implement it and use it. And then now it came back again. I think it's very critical to us. We would probably not have to have a referendum in Caledonia last year for $1 million that we could have our police and fire. So I think if we could use some of this money to fund our infrastructures, our police and fire, I think would be a big benefit for all the communities because everybody's hurting for money constantly in the communities. So that's my take on this. I think it's a great thing to do. And there are only 4 counties in the state of Wisconsin that don't have the 0.5%. We got Waukesha, Winnebago, Manitowoc, and Racine. I think it's crazy that we don't have it because you're going all these other different counties and spending your money. You don't even realize you're spending money in their counties and paying more than what you pay in Racine County. Thank you.
Thank you. William Janik.
Say William Jake or Jane?
It's
It's me.
it's you. Okay.
It's,
Gotta look
no,
at
it's
it.
Jake, Bill Jake, 2910 Forest View Circle, Village of Yorkville. I know several of you in the room. I know many more outside the room, obviously. And I've spoken to many of them over this last week. In fact, I spoke upstairs about this last week. I recommended a referendum. I could see the expressions on your face. You didn't have to, it wasn't a Q&A, a dialogue, but I could tell you were really not interested in that. So I came tonight for another proposal, and I do believe in living within our means. I am also frugal. I'll use the other word that the previous gentleman used, but consider a capital expenditure that you've had in the past 5 years and bond it out. The advantage of a bond is the money is going on sale. Jay Powell, our Federal Reserve Chairman, just said interest rates are going to be cut. He said that a week ago. Then he said Federal Reserve meetings in the future, there'll be several other cuts coming forward. So the advantage is, again, if you have a bond, you get the money right up front. Let's say it's a 10-year bond. At the end of 10 years, that last payment you make is literally that. It's the last payment. If you keep a sales tax in place, guess what? It goes out to perpetuity. So last week's idea was a referendum, let the people decide. And by the way, all the people I spoke to are against this. And then today's idea is consider a bond. If you need cash, I understand it, but I just think there's better ways to do it than tax the people. Okay, thank you for listening.
Michael Schrader.
Good evening. I'm Michael Schrader, 1636 Chatham Street in Racine. I actually came in at the committee meeting and propaganda. It's all speculation. For someone to come down here and say that a quarter of the sales tax is going to be from out-of-county residents, there's no numbers to back that up. And if you drive down the I, you'll notice a lot of people go down to Kenosha to get their gas because it's a lot cheaper in Kenosha County than it is in Racine County. We don't have people stopping by. We are on the way from Milwaukee. Everybody stops in Kenosha before it gets too expensive and you get down to Illinois. Then it gets really expensive. Or they go up to Milwaukee. So let's work with real numbers. And those are just fabrications, they're wish list. This is not the panacea. This is reverse Robin Hood. You are robbing from the poor to give to the not so poor because sales tax is a regressive tax. It's not a progressive tax. So poor people are going to get hurt more by that 0.5%. Yeah, you go, oh, it's only, you know, 100 some odd dollars a year. Tell that to someone who's working on minimum wage, that you just raised their taxes. And that $100 is the difference between whether they can pay the utility bill or not. This is a terrible, terrible idea. I don't think anybody learned their lesson from the stadium fiasco. We just blew a lot of money on Foxconn, and I'll emphasize the word con. That was government money. That was my money that got wasted on that. And you're coming back going, give us more, give us more. You need to look at the county. You need to look at how things operate. You need to cut down on the nepotism, the corruption, the cronyism. And I guarantee you, you will find the money that you need if you take a hard look and clean up the corruption. But if you don't want to do that, then I am going to emphatically tell everybody I know to vote to just say no. We're saying no. We've had enough. No more taxes.
Thank you. John Steinmeier?
The name is Simic, not
Simic?
John Simic. I live at 801 9th Avenue, Union Grove, Wisconsin. I've been there about 50 years. The sales tax you propose, I don't like. Like some of these other people before me, the stadium crap keep on going. And I suggest that you maybe take the raise the taxes on us so we can write it off on income tax, straight off the board. I know in Union Grove, they're going to have to build some onto the high school. I mean, add some more land. Then they got between Yorkville and Union Grove, they got a 90 million fire truck thing. They haven't. That does not include the thing, the land itself. I also got a wife in the nursing home. So what's the difference? Tax it so I can write it off on my income tax, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason Engel?
Thank you, sir. Thank you guys for being here. I'll make it real short and sweet. I'm also a village board member for Sturtevant, and after talking to some residents there's a lot of negativity on this, and I personally feel like I know you guys got a big challenge, but now is not the time. Now is not time for the hike. There's not a lot of hiring signs out there. And we went from hiring everywhere to not so much right now. And I think now is not the time. That's all I got. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Brian Herschel?
Name is Brian Hickel, 147 Russell Lane in Mount Pleasant. I walked in at the end of the committee meeting, so I only heard a little bit of what was said. Like a lot of people, I am against this. I'm not going to repeat everyone's reasons why that be frugal or not very good at this time. But I will say this. There are government spends money and never stops. You can look at any other tax at any other city. I mean, whether it be the Illinois tollway, the stadium tax, whatever. Once they get their hands in the pocket, they never let go. I did hear though that you guys are proposing a 50% cut in my property tax. Well, that's great. But what if we you know what, we have an emergency. We're gonna make that 45% this year. And then the following year, it's like, you know what? Yeah, we'll do a 42% cut. And if you guys want to do the sales tax, put it in writing for the residents, 50%. And the only way to change that 50% will be a vote of this board. Do not just make it a blanket sales tax. Put your money where your mouth is. Thank you.
Thank you. John Engel?
John Engel, and I'm 2520 Delaware, Racine, Wisconsin. And the state has billions of dollars in excess can't you get anything from there? And the other thing is, I'm against any new taxes. You tax us enough. That's it.
Thank you. Carrie Madrigal.
Carrie Madrigal, 19012 58th Road, Union Grove, Wisconsin. Thank you, Racine County Board of Supervisors, for representing your constituents as you were elected to do. Yes, most of you know me, but tonight I am here to speak to you as a county resident, Racine County resident, not on behalf of any other agency within Racine County. I was born in Racine County. I've lived here for over 50 years, proudly, to say the least. In my personal life, I strive to make our county a better place to live for my children and for all of Racine County residents. I love Racine County, as I would hope each and every one of you do as well. I believe Racine County has been moving in an upward direction in the last 10 or so years. This sales tax is necessary and unavoidable. Without it, Racine County will slip back decades. I don't want to see that. I find it difficult to believe that anyone on this Board of Supervisors had little knowledge of its necessity. I am appalled to hear that some supervisors have been threatened to lose their position by others telling them that someone will run against them should they vote in favor of this sales tax. This county board respected Jonathan Delagrave. Jonathan Delagrave had an ability to bring people of different positions, different ideas, different backgrounds to a common goal. And he could move all of those people in the same direction. He stressed over this. He stressed very hard for a very long time over this sales tax. He did everything he could. He asked the state, he cut positions within Racine County to make the budget work. We cannot cut additional positions. We are cut to the bone, and you are working with the minimum, yet asking for the maximum work. You trusted Jonathan's vision for a very, very long time. This sales tax was part of his vision, and I suspect many of you know that. I am so sad to see the distension that has taken place. A friend of mine, a common friend with Jonathan Delagrave, and I sat at the county fair and we were talking about him. And we came up with a new phrase. When we found ourselves in a tough position, we decided we were going to move forward and say, what would JD do? Because those that knew and loved Jonathan, that was his nickname, JD. I know what JD would do. Because if he was here right now, he'd be telling you to vote for it. And he would have taken the time to speak with each and every single one of you to make sure that you had an understanding as to why we need this. Half a cent on a dollar, not the end of the world. I'm a single mother of 3. I know how to budget. I can make this work. When I buy furniture, I don't stay in Racine County. I don't think twice about it. One of 4 counties in the state, and we will be missing out on over $6 million if this is not voted and passed by the end of August. Sometimes it is hard to do what's right, but that is what you were elected to do. Racine County will not be what it is today if this is not put through. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Jeff Neubauer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, County Board. I appreciate very much the opportunity to be here today. And I also want to thank all of you for your service, for your willingness to put your names on the ballot. I've done that. I understand a little bit about what that's like, and for your willingness to serve and for your willingness to make these hard decisions. And also thanks to all the people who work for Racine County and provide excellent services to us. Oh my goodness. Listening to this tonight, do we miss Jonathan or what? What a loss. What a tragic loss. Our former counter executive, Jonathan Delagrave, this county board, and many others have worked for years to do everything they could to avoid implementing a county sales tax. If you do just a little bit of simple math on the data that was handed out tonight, our county levy per person in Racine County is $308 per person. Kenosha's $448 per person in their levy. We're 45% lower than Kenosha County today. Our county has done an excellent job of running lean for years and years and years. But in 2021, in order to balance those budgets, our county executive and the county board at the time had to tap the reserves for $11 million. To balance the budget in 2022, we had to tap $9 million out of reserves. To balance the budget in 2023, we had to tap $7 million in county reserves. We've gone to the piggy bank, and the piggy bank is empty. The state does have a large surplus. I know a little bit about that. I chaired a committee in the legislature that the state budget went through many years ago. And I think anyone who looks at state government today, regardless of their partisan view, who is an honest broker or can read the tea leaves there at all, will be able to tell you with absolute certainty that the state will not be able to bail us out for the 2025 year. It's impossible given the timing, and the partisan composition of the legislature will prevent it in the coming budget. You heard the sheriff say that if we don't have a sales tax, he'll have to cut 53 deputies and 38 corrections officers. Now, when we go to most people and ask them, do you want more taxes? Of course, they're going to say no. But if you go to those same people and say, do you want to cut 53 deputies? They're going to say, oh my goodness, I don't want that. I'm just about to wrap up here, but I just want to say that when you all learn and know what you're going to learn in this budget process, if you were to share that with others, many reasonable and thoughtful people would come to the same conclusion that I believe the majority, perhaps hopefully the overwhelming majority of this board will come to. And that is Jonathan did everything he could to avoid or postpone a sales tax. He had a plan to propose this sales tax, and we honor his legacy and his vision if we have the courage to move forward, do what's right, and do it now. I thank you for this opportunity, and I appreciate your service and the hard choices you're going to have to make. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Sam Wallen.
Hello, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sam Wallen. I live at 14334 Marina Drive, just down the street here. First of all, I want to thank you for what you do. As someone who was born and raised here, I am so proud of how far we've come as a county. I mean, just think about the last 10 years, the accomplishments that we've made, how far we've come. A lot of that goes to the staff, goes to you, and it certainly goes to Jonathan Delagrave. Jonathan was a good friend of mine. He was a guest at my wedding. I knew him for years. I even helped on his first campaign, and I had a lot of respect for him. And I do wish he was here tonight. One of the things that he would probably tell you is that every year at the same time, we have a budget shortfall. Every year, every time, and we never have enough money because we're that part of the budget process. That's where we are, right? Everyone comes to with their request. Everyone tells you the sky is falling. And then Somehow magically, we figure it out. You haven't been given enough information to accurately decide this. You haven't had time to pursue every alternative. So one of the people here talked about how we've cut jobs. Actually, we haven't. So if you look at the most recent budget, 2024, including contractors, which we've narrowed down on contractors, we've added 30 jobs each year on average for the last 3 years. We've added, we haven't cut. And that doesn't mean that those jobs weren't necessary or more important or weren't important. But that tells you that we don't know where we're at right now. So I would encourage you to actually dive into this. Don't accept rhetoric. You know, it's easy for people to come here and say, we can take another tax increase. Once you vote on this, it will be here forever. It will never, ever go away. And you know what? You notice how one of the elected officials came up and told you he likes the idea. Because you know what? He wants a piece of that pie. That's what will happen. You will pass it this year. Next year, you'll find yourself in another budget deficit. And then another year, you'll find municipalities coming to you to ask for money. City of Racine is going to come ask you for money, certainly. Mount Pleasant is going to ask you for money. I know people who are elected to both of those governments. I know people that are really trying hard that would advocate for this. We can do better. We don't need this. You know, our fees that we charge people haven't gone up for years. I checked that out. So we haven't looked at that part. We haven't looked at how much we're spending on people, where we're spending on our money, because we haven't gotten there yet. Dig deeper. Your taxpayers deserve it. Your voters deserve it. And for all of you who put on your literature, hold the line on taxes, or put on your campaign literature that you would cut taxes, your voters expect you to do your research before you vote on this. Thank you.
Any further comments? Any further comments? All right. Moving forward. Reading of the minutes of the previous meeting, which is automatically waived unless requested by the majority of the members present. Seeing none. Resolutions and ordinance referred to committees.
There are none.
Introductions of resolutions and ordinance for first reading and referral.
Resolution number 2024-42 by Finance and Human Resources Committee authorizing the county treasurer to vacate judgment for interim action on 9 properties. Resolution number 2024-43 by Finance and Human Resources Committee denying the property damage claim of Amy Buchanan. And resolution number 2024-44 by Finance and Human Resources Committee denying the property damage claim of Cheryl Baumgart.
Supervisor Trotter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am requesting unanimous consent for first and second reading for Resolution 2024-42. Any objection?
No objection, so
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
number 8, communications and claims.
Number 1, press release regarding findings from review of election night reporting error from Racine County.
Items number 1 is referred and filed in the county clerk's office.
Number 2, relocation order project number 37630004 for plat of right-of-way required for County Highway KR First Street from the Village of Mount Pleasant.
Item number 2 is referred to the Economic Development and Land Use Planning Committee.
Number 3, notice of public involvement meeting regarding WISDOT project ID 38340003/73 in the town of Burlington, Bonner Drive, Fisherman Road to Fish Hatchery Road, Racine County from Lynch and Associates.
Item number 3 is referred to Public Works, Parks and Facilities Committee.
Number 4, letter and budget document for 2025 budget from the Southeastern Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. Number 5, letter regarding financial statements, independent auditors report for the year ended December 31st of 2023 from the Wisconsin Professional Baseball Park District. And number 6, public comment from Corey Henningfeld regarding the possible new sales tax.
Items number 4 through 6 are referred to the Finance and Human Resources Committee.
And now communications number 7 through 12 are claims, and communications number 13 through 41 are notifications from the United States Bankruptcy Court.
So items number 7 through 41 are referred to Finance and Human Resources Committee and Corporation Council.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Supervisor Miller.
I would like a copy of number 2, please.
Supervisor Wishaw.
Copy of number 3, please.
Supervisor Spencer.
I'd like a copy of number 11, please.
Supervisor Varant.
Copy of number 2 and 3, please.
Supervisor Cole.
Same copy of 2 and 3.
Any other requests? Oh, Supervisor Trotter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I request a copy of number 2 and number 4.
Any other requests? I'll take 3 and 4. Thank you. Communications from the county executive.
Report number 2024-24 by County Executive making an appointment to the Racine Kenosha Community Action Agency Board of Directors.
Refer that to the Health and Human Development Committee. Number 10, standing committee reports containing recommendations on items referred.
There are no reports.
Second reading of resolutions and ordinances.
Under majority vote, we have ordinance number 2024-39 by Economic Development and Land Use Planning Committee to rezone R2 Suburban Residential District Unsewered to A2 General Farming and Residential District 2, Section 13, Town 4 North, Range 19 East, Town of Waterford, applicant Lee Robinson Jr. Ordinance number 2024-40 by Economic Development and Land Use Planning Committee to amend the Town of Waterford land use map of the multi-jurisdictional comprehensive plan for Racine County 2035 as it pertains to parcel ID number 016-041-913-095-020. And ordinance number 2024-41 by Economic Development and Land Use Planning Committee creating section 20-1801 of the Racine County Code of Ordinances establishing a moratorium on the consideration and or issuance of zoning permits, conditional use and or site plan review zoning approvals for solar energy systems.
Is Supervisor Ekman or Supervisor Wishaw, you were secretary?
Yeah, so,
Right. Here comes the Public Works Director, Riley.
no,
Did you help us a little bit? Oh, okay.
I got it. Okay, so 2024-39 is a simple rezoning, unanimous approval. 2024-40 is maybe requires a little more explanation. What the intent of this is, putting a moratorium on applying for the permits for solar farms. What we want to do is to get ahead of, right now, we don't have anybody asking, but we're very close to having an ordinance draft in place. We'd like to have that in place before we get a request, so that we're not scrambling to deny or approve or a request for a permit without having the ordinance in place that we need. So that's 2024-40 and also 2024-41. I'm sorry. Yeah, that was 2024-41. And 2024-40 update to the Town of Waterford's land use map, which was also approved unanimously.
Okay. Is there a motion to?
Second.
Any further discussions? Questions, comments? This is a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Now the items under the 2/3 majority vote category. Resolution number 2024-35 by Finance and Human Resources Committee authorizing the reclassification of 2 FTE N060 accounting technician to 2 FTE N076 accounting associate and 1 FTE E030 finance specialist to 1 FTE E040 staff accountant effective August 24th of 2024 and transfer of $1,872 within the Human Services Department 2024 budget. Resolution number 2024-36 by Finance and Human Resources Committee authorizing the project to update the Racine County housing analysis and transfer of $7,500 within the County Executive 2024 budget. Resolution number 2024-37 by Finance and Human Resources Committee authorizing the creation of 1 FTE Lead Youth and Family Case Manager N126 effective October 5th, 2024, and transfer of $24,190 within the 2024 Human Services Department budget. And resolution number 2024-38 by Finance and Human Resources Committee authorizing the reclassification of 1 FTE Safety and Security Supervisor E060 to 1 FTE Deputy Superintendent E065. Reclassification of 1 FTE Youth Programming Supervisor E060 to 1 FTE Youth Program Manager E065. Reclassification of 1 FTE Youth Program Coordinator N125 to 1 FTE Lead Youth Program Coordinator N126. Reclassification of 6 FTE Safety and Security Coordinators from pay grade N123 to N125. Creation of 3 FTE Safety and Security Workers N120. Reclassification of 2 FTE Youth Mental Health Counselors from pay grade N125 to BE20. Creation of 1 FTE Facilities Custodian N095. Change in the start date of 2 youth program coordinators from November 1st, 2024 to October 5th, 2024, and use of sufficient funds in the 2024 Human Services budget.
Motion approved.
Motion to approve.
Supervisor Trotter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to address these out of order per se. I'd like to, first of all, address myself and then ask some of our directors and staff to address the other 3. I know the other 3 from 30,000 feet, but the staff could properly address any specific questions. And the one resolution I'd like to address myself is in regards to Resolution 2024-36. I am requesting approval of $7,500 from within the executive budget to update the study about the Racine County housing analysis that was done in 2019. This analysis that was done in 2019 was based on statistics from 2018 and 2019, and then it was given to the general public and elected officials in December of 2019, and then COVID entered the picture. The same company is going to update the study called Tracy Cross and Associates with a total cost of $15,000, of which $7,500 is coming from the county per the approval this evening. $5,000 from WRA, Wisconsin Realtors Association, and $2,500 from RCEDC. The study they anticipate should be completed October, November, and a presentation will be made shortly thereafter. So I'm looking for approval of this. And for Resolution 2024-35, I'm going to ask our Finance Director, Gwen Zimmer, to come up and address that, please.
Thank you, Chairman. This resolution is in response to the recent literature that the federal government put out about the FLSA changes, where it will determine if somebody should be an hourly employee or a salaried employee. I've worked with my staff in the finance department, as well as the fiscal division in the human services department and the accounting division within public works to make sure that we've got our employees adequately and appropriately graded and titled per their job descriptions. So with that, over the last year, we've done a hard look because we steal from each other. Employees will go to human services because there's grant funding over there and so they can afford a higher rate than some of the other areas. With this, I'm asking for a reclass of 2 positions at human services to bump them up from one hourly grade to the next. They have been with the county for 24 years and 30 years respectively, and are at the top of their pay scale. They have not received a pay increase in years. So this would give them a 5% bump, that's the $1,800, and then put them at a new pay scale that they would be eligible for increases. And then to standardize across all of the areas, I'm asking for a reclass of an accountant position over in Public Works, a finance specialist to a staff accountant. And we would not include a pay increase for this employee because they're brand new. They haven't received their merit increase yet, or their annual review to determine if they should get a merit. And then with the items that I submitted to the Finance Committee, I also included an org chart so that you can see all of the employees that fall under the finance umbrella across all the departments that are responsible for all of the functions of finance and accounting for the county, including accounts payable, payroll, budget, audit, indirect cost plan, and so much more. Any questions?
Thank you, Director Zimmer. Next up, I have Resolution 2024-37. I have Amber Lynn and Hope here. Amber Lynn is still here. Great.
Yeah,
You-
she'll be for the 38.
Oh, she'll be for the next one. Thank you very much, Director.
Sure, absolutely. So for this resolution, this is for a lead case manager position that currently does not exist within our Youth and Family Division. We have several areas within Youth and Family, one of them being Access that screens in over 2,000, well, they screen over 2,000 reports of child abuse and neglect every year. And some of them end up being referred into the Initial Assessment Division. That job is one of the toughest jobs within the county and certainly within my department. They have to make the determinations of whether children can stay safely in home or whether they need to be removed. It's extremely stressful, and it takes approximately 6 months to be trained into the occupation. Our current turnover rate within there is somewhere around 60 to 80%, and that's not different than any other area around the state and the country. And so one of the things that we want to do to try to effectively reduce some of that and create more stability is to have a tiered leadership in that area. In almost every other area within human services, we have leads and then supervisors, and it helps with building succession planning, as well as taking some of the pressure off of the new staff that have new skills and are just learning the work of child welfare to be able to bounce cases off of them and to take pressure off of the supervisors. I will say in a given budget and constraints compared to the next resolution in full transparency, this one is very important, but this is not rising to the level of importance of the next resolution. And I just wanted to be forthcoming about that.
Questions? Hearing none, we'll move on to Amber Lynn for the long change of here, there, and everywhere. She
Yeah.
will do her best to understand.
Yeah, I'll try to simplify this, and
Okay.
certainly Amberlyn can fill in with any questions, but then, thanks, and Tony's here too to kind of talk through just the overall functions and more specific things about the position. But those individuals who are on my board and committee are aware that I did not put forth all of the necessary positions in the last budget purposefully because we wanted to be able to reassess and see exactly where staffing was going to lie, what positions needed to meet the new DOC 347 code, work in conjunction with the state to ensure that we have adequate staffing for all of our various functions, figuring out what the visitation schedule is, the court schedule, all of the different challenges of being able to transport youth in and out of the facility, in addition to the requirements of new medical and dental requirements. So this long mouthful of positions is very intentional, although it is a lot. We'll do our best to simplify it. Essentially, our partnership with RUSD is that we are going to need, because of the challenges that they have in staffing as well, to be able to increase our programming staff and realign to be able to have more functions that are about programming and education put on our team. RUSD did commit another teacher into our formula, which was really great, and we're extremely grateful for that. But still looking at the way that we would recommend education for the youth in our facility, we are at least one to maybe two teachers short of that. And so that will be falling upon our staff to do so. As I mentioned, the transporting requirements, the additional 3 safety and security positions, in which we currently have about a 43% turnover rate. We want to have those additional positions not only so that we can assure the staffing requirements of DOC, but to ensure that we can meet some of the operational needs there. I will say because of that turnover rate, if we are wrong in our estimate for the new facility, we would have the opportunity to then hold a vacant position and not fill them in upcoming budgets. There's some positions where we have very long tenure. This is not one of those areas. So in terms of risk and needing to reassess in the future, it would be an area I would feel confident of us to be able to do so. Additionally, one of the things in here is a custodian position. We had initially believed that we would need a full-time building and facilities employee. After consultation with the building facilities leadership and corporation council who oversees the division, we decided that a custodian was a more appropriate position at this time. And when and if the mental health facility is constructed, we would then add in one into the rotation to share amongst the facilities. This is a reduced expense. And so with that, I will pause and see if there's any questions in more detail for the team, the leadership team.
Is there any questions? Supervisor Spencer.
I would like to jump back to 2024-37.
Sure.
For the sake of people who are listening, can you explain how the transfer of money within your budget, 2024 budget, how that works?
Yeah.
For those that are listening, thank you.
Yes. So I had mentioned earlier about some of the cost savings we see in out-of-home placements. And so we have different budget lines for residential, foster care, as well as institutional expenses for the youth and family area. When we have cost savings in the area, we're able to redeploy those funds to another area. So I view this as a reinvestment of cost savings from our residential line is likely where I would recommend taking that from, but Gwen would know better.
Any further questions? So this is a 2/3 majority vote. So we'll.
First, we'll have you check in. Okay. All have voted. Motion carries unanimously. Now we'll go back to the item that was requested for first and second reading this evening. That would be resolution number 2024-42 by Finance and Human Resources Committee authorizing the county treasurer to vacate judgment for in-rem action on 9 properties, and this will be a majority vote.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second? Motion's been made and seconded. Supervisor Trottier.
As the resolution states, this is to vacate judgment for in-rem action on 9 properties. What we have here is property owners are now on those 9 properties paying taxes. It is a good thing that they are now paying taxes. I do have our treasurer, Jeff Lattis, here to answer any questions.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today, the county board received an email from Robin Palm of Mount Pleasant voicing some concerns over the property in this list on Racine Street. And it's my understanding that the county treasurer has some information for us on that.
Jeff?
Good evening. So 2208 Racine Street, we did receive communication from the Village of Mount Pleasant. Village of Mount Pleasant Building Inspection and Zoning Department has received multiple nuisance complaints with regard to that property, as well as some building code violations. We just received that contact from the Village of Mount Pleasant last week for the first time. In April of this year, we took judgment on 67 parcels through property tax foreclosure. At that time, we asked the judge to put a stay of judgment on 9 of those parcels. Those 9 parcels that we asked for a stay of judgment on, we asked for that so that we could afford additional time for those property owners to continue to exercise and demonstrate good workout plans for those parcels. All 9 of those property owners have satisfied the terms of the agreements that were put in place prior to court. So essentially, we are asking that all 9 of those parcels do receive authority to request that those judgments be vacated and the properties returned to the property owners. With regard to 2208 Racine Street, my office is in regular contact with municipal offices. We have a great cooperative effort with all municipal offices, and we want to work together to solve problems. In my opinion, the vacate of the judgment is really a separate issue from what we've encountered recently within the last week with regard to the nuisance issues. So my recommendation, my request is that we still do move forward with the vacate of judgment, and we will continue to work with the municipality to find alternate means to satisfy the issues that they're having with regard to the nuisance and building code violations. But in my mind, those are really 2 separate issues altogether.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Miller.
follow up. I just would appreciate if the Corporation Council, and I appreciate the County Treasurer's thoughts on this, but if the Corporation Council has any comments in terms of, is it appropriate for this issue raised by the staff member from Mount Pleasant to be part of our deliberations on whether or not to vacate the judgment?
Thank you, Supervisor Miller. If I understand the question, if it's appropriate for whom to be part of the discussions?
Should this be a factor for our decision on whether or not to vacate the judgment?
So this program is administrated through the treasurer's office. The treasurer has spoken to the issue and has reached the conclusion that there are really 2 separate issues. That's in terms of addressing that nuisance violation and working with the Village of Mount Pleasant and ensuring that those issues are addressed. I have no disagreement with the treasurer that that's really separate from this issue. The issue before the board here tonight is the fact that this property owner has complied with the terms that have been presented to him, as have the other 8 that are part of this list. And on that basis alone, the treasurer has made the recommendation that those judgments should be vacated.
Mr. Chairman, I want to thank both treasurer and the corp council, because I've never seen anything like this brought to us in terms of a request to perhaps withhold the order to vacate. But I appreciate both our county treasurer and corporation council giving us guidance.
Any further? Supervisor Brandt.
I do have a question about, it's kind of unique how Mount Pleasant cuts into a more of a majority portion of Racine there. Is the Mount Pleasant Building Department staying on top of this property for some of these concerns?
I can't really speak to that, honestly. Again, this issue was brought to my attention for the first time last week. I do know that it is a priority of theirs to stay on top of that, but I don't know the history as to how long they've been working with the household, with the owner to resolve issues.
And I guess my kind of a follow-up question is there other issues that you happen to be aware of in that region where Mount Pleasant owns properties or is responsible for the oversight on those properties, where there's other concerns with building department issues or not? I know it's out of your realm and such, but.
Not specifically. You know, there is a small pocket of Mount Pleasant that is on the south side off of 21st Street in that area, and that's kind of the area that we're working with. You know, from a demographic perspective, it is a lower income area, and I do know that, you know, upkeep on the homes and those types of things, it is comparable to what you might see in more of an inner city type of environment. So I do know that there are some additional issues with regard to that. I have not heard any specific concerns about the village not staying on top of those issues. And I do know that, the cop house directly in that neighborhood is very beneficial in kind of keeping that communication with the community and, maintaining that relationship.
Any further questions?
I guess I just have a little bit of concern with that. I don't know how involved Mount Pleasant is in being new and such, but kind of forgoing some of the tax side of things, but it's one way to keep, and I don't like the acronym, but teeth in a property to enforce things. You're losing potentially a little bit of enforcement, I think, by.
If I could ask a question then. So if you would take that off of that, what would happen to that off of this and make it 8? What would happen to that, Jeff?
So if we opted to not to authorize vacate of judgment of that one specific property, then the county would retain ownership of that property. We would then move forward to secure the property, essentially work with the residents to have them vacate the property, board it up, winterize it, get it ready for a future sale, and then present that available for a future sale. My concern with that approach is, the judge in the case had put forward the judgment with a stay of judgment on those 9 properties, with the understanding that if those residents met the terms of those agreements, that the county would then go back to the court and request that those judgments be vacated. These residents have honored that term. So in my opinion, I don't dispute that there may be a nuisance issue that needs to be addressed. I just don't know that this is the appropriate tool to use to address that nuisance issue.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Just a comment.
Supervisor Spencer.
I think maybe checking with you. Isn't that COP house 1 block east of the property?
Approximately, yeah, I believe it's on the
Within
2100 block
sight,
of
because-
Mead.
Yeah.
And we're at
Thank you.
2200 block of Racine.
Any further questions? Okay, I'll call the question for the vote. This is a majority vote, voice vote. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Item number 12, recommendations for resolutions or ordinances from previous meetings and or actions on vetoes.
There are no reconsiderations.
Reconsideration of and or notice of intent to reconsider resolutions and ordinances.
There is no notice.
Informational reports.
Report number 2024-25 by Finance and Human Resources Committee authorizing the settlement of the property claim of Acuity Insurance on behalf of their insured Delta Electric, Inc. And report number 2024-26 by Finance and Human Resources Committee authorizing the settlement of the property claim of PC Logistics LLC.
Item number 15, miscellaneous business announcements and oral reports. Okay. Go ahead, Supervisor Varanth.
I just want to make a quick comment. It kind of goes back to, the earlier meeting and some of the sales tax things. I did a very.
No. This is
Okay.
announcements.
Sorry.
Supervisor Spencer.
Thank you. I just want to, I put these on all your desks on behalf of the UW Extension person who asked me to share the information. So do with it what you will if you want to share it. It's at the Racine Public Library, so it's a lot of you are too far west, but.
Thank you. I've got 2 announcements. Number 1, be aware that the staff is working diligently on the sales tax issue, and there's going to be a lot of numbers that they need to generate for the interim county executive. When you request information, request it through the chairman of the appropriate committee or myself or the county executive, because then we'll take it forward. And then what I want to have happen is any kind of reports that come out get shared with all of the county supervisors. So we'll hear all the same information. So that's request number 1. kind of were doing that many years ago, and then let's make sure we don't all ask the same question or a variation of it, that we have to keep generating reports for people. And on a little bit later note, we had a lot of real good luck up at the state fair this last week. On Wednesday, we had a grand champion steer from Racine County, Luke Andis. He's out, he's actually in the village of Rochester, but has a Burlington address. And that steer sold for $35,000. The grand champion barrel, which is a lot of pork is a crossbred, and that was Amanda Miskoleski, an interstate parking bought that for $22,500. Grand champion Simmenthal was also shown by Luke Andis, and that sold for $8,000. But here's the one I really like. The champion Hereford steer was exhibited by Nolan England of Waterford. Winning bid was $8,500 by the Friends of Racine County. Line Construction, North Cape Vet Clinic, Dr. Castenson. Earhart Farms from Dover. Performance Planning, of course, GI Case. Beck Family Farms, the Hereford breeder out of Waterford. Harry Hansen's Meat Service. Badger State Ethanol, another Norway resident business, and Premier Insurance. So congratulations to all the show steers that won at Grand Champion and all of our show animals from the county fair.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask that the county executive explain why, and deepest respect for Supervisor Variance, why we can't do what he wanted to do.
You mean Corporation Council, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
that too.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'll be sure to send a communication to the full county board tomorrow. It's something that I send out periodically, but it dawned on me that I don't believe that I sent it out with the new board. But the miscellaneous items portion in any governmental body's agenda can become problematic. It's okay when it's meant for and utilized for general statements or reminders of what's happening in the community or acknowledging people who've done great things or who deserve some form of recognition, but it can become problematic and potentially run afoul of the open meetings law when we address items that the public has not been notified that we may be discussing. Even if we've already discussed it at an earlier portion of the meeting, they may have already left. We had a lot of people here this evening and they've already left. And so they would have missed their opportunity to be on notice that important matters were going to be discussed. So I'll be sure to send out an update just describing that in a little bit further detail. I know it seems kind of strange that we're here to be transparent. We're all committed to transparency. Why can't we talk about it? It's precisely because of that, the commitment to and our obligation to be transparent and to adhere to the open meetings law, that we can't use that as an opportunity to address items that are within the governmental body's realm of authority, but that haven't been noticed to the public. So I'll send that communication out tomorrow. And then it dawns on me that we're knee deep in election season. We've got a lot of elections coming up. I plan on sending out a separate communication that I've sent out in the past to county staff, but also to the various elected officials as well, about the Hatch Act, about what's appropriate in the workplace, what's appropriate outside the workplace, use of county equipment, use of county spaces for any sort of electioneering or campaigning. So I'll send that notification out hopefully by the end of this week. So look for that as well. Thank you. And any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. Thank you.
There you go. We're adjourned.